Today I am going to use a PIXI.Polygon to make a complex walk area for a game that I am doing in the CTGS editor. The language that I will be using will basically be JavaScript with CTGS and PIXI on top of that. And the game will be a HTML5 game, though it could also be rendered as a desktop game. I have in a previous video showed how to make a PIXI.Polygon and use the contains function. This will tell me, or rather the program, if a point is inside the polygon or if it is outside. If I have a sprite for a character and use a point at the character's feet as the point I am checking for, I will know if the character's feet are in the walkable area. If not, I will have the character move back to the previous position within the same frame before the frame is rendered. That way, a character about to walk out of the walkable area will be stopped. I have shown how the walkable area using PIXI.Polygon and the function contains in an earlier video. There will be a link to that in the description below this video. In this video I will test doing a larger, more complex walkable area and see how that turns out. I will do 29 rooms with connecting doors. Normally I would do that as 29 different scenes, with a room in each one and doors used to jump between the scenes. I am here using the word scene for what in the editor is called a room, and the word room for a drawn room in the building shown on the screen. So I have a drawn background with 29 rooms of different shapes and sizes on a 4000 by 4000 pixel background. The screen of the game is 640 by 480 pixels, so only a part of the background of that size can be shown at a time. The camera will follow the character as it moves inside and between the different rooms. The character is at this time a placeholder image without animations, just being a reference for the size of the character. The controls are just arrow keys adding or subtracting to the character's X or Y value. The point defined is the point at the character's feet. The background is drawn in Fire Alpaca and built up in layers. I have one layer for the floor, one layer for the walls, and one for hangers on the walls. For now I use one image with the 3 layers compressed down to one layer. I will later add more stuff to the rooms, and in a final version the rooms may be represented by more than one image, depending on how it is to be used in the game. For now, and for the purpose of testing how the walkable area will function, it will do with one image. This model also has doors that open and close as the character passes. We will get into that later in this video. To build a polygon we need an array, a list, of the points that connects the lines that makes up the polygon. The points need to be in the order they come, following the lines of the polygon. The last point in the list will connect back to the first point and close the polygon. I am going for one polygon for the whole walkable area. This is not the only way I could do it, but it is the way I am going to try out. So I start out with a point at the door of one room and follow the wall leading away from the door, and follow that wall around the whole maze until I come back to the start. As I go, I list the X and Y values for each point. With a list of x and y values, it soon becomes very difficult to see which values that represent a specific point. That makes it very difficult to adjust points after you have finished the list, and that is something that you probably will want to do. To make it easier to find a certain point in the list, I have added 2 empty spaces between each 2 values representing a point. That makes it easy to visually understand which 2 values that makes up a point. I also make a line break each time I reach the door, and makes a comment at the end of that line marking which room this line refers to. For each door in a room there will be a separate line, so each line for a room with more than one door, the comment will also contain information on which part in the room that the line refers to, like 1 out of 2. This way I can fairly easily find the different points if needed in the list. The way that I actually did it when I made the list was that I did that in the background image in FireAlpaca on a separate layer. I made a separate image from that with the values written out and the number of the room written out. I can then use that in the editor, do a walk around with the character and write down values as I do that in a text document at the side of the editor, and at the end enter that into the editor. To check if the values of the points are correct, I use a PIXI graphics to color the area. This way it is easy to see if any of the points have been placed wrong or need some adjustment to get it just right. After the corrections have been done, the colored graphic is not needed anymore. It can be commented out. I could still use it later if I want to change anything. The doors works this way. There are 2 images, one for door closed and one for the door open. And there is one sound that is used both for opening the door and closing. The code for the action is in the template, and that will be transferred to each copy of the door. The code mainly do 2 things: open or close the door and play the sound of the door 1 time. The other thing is to use depth, to have the door being above or below the character in the layers of the depth list, depending on where in the room the character is. Is the character behind the door or in front of the door? If the character is in a box close to the bottom of a door, the texture of the door would be that of the open door image. Otherwise, the texture is the closed door. So, when the character walks into the box, the door opens, and when the character walks out of the box, the door closes. To know when to play the sound of door opening or closing, same sound, we have a variable that holds the texture used in the last frame. When this variable is different from the texture in the present frame, this means that the player character either walks into the box or walks out of it, and that triggers the sound and completes the illusion of a door opening or closing. The second part of the code for the doors deals with the depth set for the door. When the player character's Y position, at the position of the character's feet, is lower than the Y position of the bottom of the door, the player character is behind the door, so the door needs to have a higher depth value than the player character have. So the door is shown on top of the player character when they intersect. And of course the opposite applies when the character have a higher Y position value. The door needs a lower depth value. To make it possible to compare the player character's position with the door using code in the template, I am using global values for the character's position. I have a bit of additional code to keep the character in the middle of the door opening while passing, so that part of the character don't stick out on either side of the door while passing. That would kind of ruin the illusion. Finally, for this version I have thrown together a small piece of background music that will play in a loop. Well, that is it for now. So far so good, I would say. Thank you for watching, and see you later. Bye!